If you're doing that, at what point are you going to have time to learn how to read? At what point are you going to have time to go and take a self-defense class? At what point are you going to have time to protect your daughter from being trafficked? At what point are you going to have time to protect your land from fossil fuel colonizers? At what point are you going to have time to leave him if he beats you? If you're spending 16 million hours per day looking for water. And by the way, you could die from no water, so it's priority. It's priority. 748 million people are still without clean water around the world. Women and girls, particularly in the poorest and rural areas, are disproportionately affected. Because if you're spending all that time looking for water, you're going to be sweating, right? So you're sweating, you're losing water, you're dehydrated, but who are you going to give priority to when the water gets shared out? It's not going to be the women. And of course, one of the biggest problems in the global north in dealing with patriarchy is white feminism. That's one of the biggest problems that we have. Because you have white feminists, like this schmuck over here, saying things like, what does race have to do with feminism? It's very clear what race has to do with feminism. If we pay attention, if we listen to women and femme-bodied people, right, of colour, it's very clear to see exactly what is going on here. But white feminism has always been patriarchal and exclusionary. Recently, the pink hats that we saw, the pink pussy hats during the Women's March, because, you know, all vaginas are pink, right? Because all women have vaginas, right? Except that, what about trans women? What about non-binary people? Right? It is incredibly racist and exclusionary, but they did it, and they did a national march, and they were proud, and there was a sea of pink hats everywhere you looked. So I'm going to give you some definitions. Mansplaining. A man explaining something obvious to a woman or another marginalized person. If you're a man, just shut the fuck up. Shut your mouth, please, okay? White-splaining. A white person explaining something obvious to a person of color or an indigenous person. If you're a white person, just shut the fuck up. Please, stop. Tone policing. People with privilege silencing marginalized people by regulating how they express themselves. When people with privilege can't argue with what the marginalized person has said, they argue with how they've said it. That's what tone policing is. Never do it, and if you see anyone doing it, call it out immediately. Call it out, because it's only allowed to go on because people with privilege let it go on. We are not things. If you want to smash the patriarchy, if you want collective liberation, you have to understand we are not things. Mother Earth is not a thing. Women are not things. Queer and trans people are not things. Animals are not things. And you know who also is not a thing? White males. White males aren't things either. You are not just an object to be wound up and sent to decimate people. You are a person. You have a heart, you have a mind, and you can change this. So let's look at some leverage points. How can male allies change the system? First of all, you need to start finding the truth. You need to start finding it. You need to accept it so you can work to change it, right? Until we collectively acknowledge the damage patriarchy causes and the suffering it creates, we cannot address male pain. We cannot demand for men the right to be whole, to be givers and sustainers of life. They are imprisoned by a system that undermines their mental health, right? So we can't help men until they start to help themselves, and until they start to accept what the truth is. Don't wait until you have a daughter before you care about dismantling rape culture. I am so sick of this. I am so sick of this, right? Didn't you come from a woman? Don't you exist because of a woman? That made it your problem. Rape is a man's problem. And so we understand here from this graphic, right? So we have the core sex offenders, Then we have the facilitators of their sex offense, right? The people who let it happen, right? The people who let it happen. Then you have the bystanders who witness it but do nothing, right? They witness it but they do nothing. And around that there's this casual sexism, the callous sexual attitudes, it says hypermasculinity, but I think that's bullshit because masculinity itself is not toxic. Toxic masculinity is toxic. So I call it toxic masculinity and denigration of women, right? So this is like how it all operates in the system, and you will see within every situation of rape, this is exactly what's happening. This is exactly what's happening. This is a graphic from Pakistan, actually, right? Understand that men can be raped too, but are often silent because of patriarchy. Educate men about internalized oppression, right? Educate men about how the patriarchy has taught them that they're never allowed to speak up about the violence committed against them, right? And what we're taught is don't get raped. What we need to tell people is don't rape. Okay? Don't rape. This idea that the victims are the ones who are always taught, like, oh, you know, the girls have to go and have like a rape awareness talk, you know, and like self-defense classes. Those wouldn't be necessary if we didn't teach the men and everyone else that rape is not okay and we need to stop. And if you are doing this, yeah, that's rape culture, stop that too. Understand that women and femme have been surviving patriarchy for centuries. Recognize that and follow their leadership. Right? That means shut the fuck up and listen to women and femme. That's what that means. Okay? Shut the fuck up and listen, because they've been doing this for a lot longer than you. So be humble. Right? The lack of women of color in leadership positions is not just a diversity issue. It is an equity issue. It's reparations. Okay? Reparations. Truth and reconciliation, right? We must have healing after the crimes against humanity, after the genocide, right, caused by the systems of oppression. But we're not going to get that without truth and reconciliation. This began in Chile in 1990 and is in many other countries in the global south have been working on this. So we need to learn from those people who've been working on this. Right? They've been doing this for a lot longer than we are. We need to learn how they do it and move that forward, bring it forward, so that we can move forward with the healing process, right? The truth hurts, but silence kills. Take action in solidarity with Indigenous peoples under the guidance of Indigenous femme and women. Radical Indigenous women and femme, right? And the reason why I make that distinction is because we all have internalized oppression, right? We've all been indoctrinated into the system. So often, what will happen is someone will do something extremely sexist, or they will do something that is sexual harassment, or like any blatant rape culture, and they'll say, well, it was okay because I asked my wife and she said it was fine. No, it wasn't fine. Your wife is your wife. That means she's hella internally oppressed. Okay? So you need to listen to radical women, right? Who have been doing healing work within themselves, who have been doing work to dismantle this, who are aware, hyper aware of what these situations look like and how to disrupt them, how to dismantle them. Okay? Standing Rock was an example of Indigenous resistance and marginalized resistance, right? It was inspired, their tactics at Standing Rock were inspired by the Chiapas, right? One of the tactics that they had was no leader, right? Humility in leadership. No one was declaring themselves and taking a name so that everyone would go worship them, right? That wasn't the point. The point was we are all working towards liberation, and it's not safe. It's not safe to have one central leader or just a few people who are in charge. And that's not free, it's not collective liberation. The indigenous peoples of Bolivia declared the rights of Mother Earth and nature. We need to learn from them. We need to learn from them. That's indigenous people, radical women and femme people getting shit done because they've been fighting the patriarchy a lot longer than you have. Defend water because water is sacred. Okay, this is a picture of me being arrested by the Coast Guard during Shell No. I mean, there's literally me being taken by the patriarchy while I'm defending the Arctic water, right? So, by the way, that's me, that's my sister Yen right there. We were at Standing Rock. This was our group, right, at Standing Rock. These things that I'm telling you to do these things. I'm not telling you to do anything I myself have not done, okay? I'm not telling you to do anything I myself have not done. Oppose war and empire wherever it is. Wherever it is. This is Ola. She's an Iraqi girl from Baghdad. An Iraqi woman, I'm sorry. I lost my home, friends, and sisters, and every beautiful memory I had there. Now I live in the US on my own with PTSD, ADD, and bad mental health. I didn't have the life you had when I was a child. I was born and raised in war. She says, I hope everyone with a shred of conscience will reject military orders to participate in war. And this was from the Our Lives, Our Right campaign. Disrupt the system with direct action, right? That means you stop the 1% from making money, okay? It's just really simple. The white men do this to make money. So you stop them making money, right? You force them to actually be accountable, right? And that's us at Break Free. Direct action must be creative and bold. Use white male privilege to shut down the system so that people of color don't have to keep risking themselves, okay? Use your white privilege so that people of color don't always have to be the ones being taken by the cops, right? And of course, this was Portland during Shall Know, right? And You Shall Not Pass. This was, I mean, we did some amazing stuff, and that was an example of, you know, so many of the white people in Portland using their privilege, right? And Shall Know itself, right? Which in Seattle we were doing, and we started in solidarity with Indigenous people of the Arctic. Right? We were following their leadership because they'd been trying to stop this for how long. So we were in solidarity with them, but what Seattle has is white privilege, right? So we were utilizing that white privilege to raise the consciousness, and that campaign spread around the world, right? Because when people talk, when white people talk, people listen. Work with elders to confront the system, okay? Leverage their privilege to shield people of color and youth from police brutality, right? And from the brutality of the system. This was us shutting down Patty Murray's office, Senator Patty Murray, right? With the Raging Grannies. And it was awesome because we had the Raging Grannies with us, and we also had white males with us, right? And what it meant was, people couldn't call cops. What were they going to do? Arrest elderly white women in an elderly white woman's senator's office? That's her base. She can't do that shit. So we went in there, and it was us who did the talking, right? It was women of color who did the majority of the talking. But they couldn't do anything about it. Use your white privilege and your elder privilege to shut shit down. Demand change from politicians, while also understanding that change will never come from within the system. Okay? You have to understand. Yeah, Bernie Sanders was great. Bernie Sanders is also an imperialist. Okay? Bernie Sanders is also an imperialist. So you have to understand that it's not going to be some politician somewhere who's going to save us. It will never happen. We must save ourselves. Speak the truth. Don't fear it. Okay? Respectability politics exists as a way to silence marginalized people. Right? That's why they turn police. You're too angry. You know, you're being really aggressive right now. You're being too loud. You're being too loud. People of color will hear that often and have heard that often. You just know your voice. You're being too loud. You're too angry. Why are you so aggressive? Right? So smash that. Whenever you see that, smash it and utilize your privilege to smash it, right? Don't be afraid of it. What is the hardest thing? The hardest thing in the whole world is for white men to talk to other white men about their patriarchy and rape culture. They won't do it. They're like, oh, but you know, he's my friend. Yes, he's your friend. That's why you should fucking talk to him. Not just talk to him, regulate on his ass. Tell him, well, you know, if you're not going to fall in line, we're going to have to banish you. There should be consequences from white men when white men enact rape culture. And by the way, you're all clapping, but when it comes to actual practice, you won't do it. You won't do it. Remember, I began this, I'm not going to censor anything that I say to protect your fragility. There are white men in this room who called themselves my white male allies, who refused to do anything about it in that moment, in that time. They failed, and then they failed again, and then they failed again, and then they continue to fail. Right? Smash that! So when you're in that situation, I want you to remember my words right here. That's why I won't protect your fragility, because when I smash your fragility, it's going to hurt you. You'll remember that. You'll remember that pain. Our brain remembers pain much easier than it remembers joy. I could come in and be like, fit awesome, and you'd just be really inspired and you'd love me, and then you'd forget everything I said. That's not okay. So I do what I do deliberately as a tactic to ensure you don't fucking forget my words. Okay? What we need is 3.5% of the population. Social justice history has shown and proved that 3.5% of the population in continuous direct action, shutting down the system, is what will actually move this system towards a more just system. Right? 3.5%, that's not a lot. And over half of this country calls themselves progressive. So go get them! Go fucking get them! What are you doing? What are you waiting for? Oh, but we need to talk to the right wing. Fuck them! We don't need them. We need our people to actually show up. That's what we need. And we need an open culture of disapproval towards rape culture, an open call-out culture. Calling in never works. Calling in never works. You can take that to the bank. You can definitely take it to the bank, because they're making shitloads of money on your calling in. They're making shitloads of money of, oh, you know, if we just send a letter to the corporation, we'll just be really nice about it. Like, you know, maybe you shouldn't have, you know, slave labor. No, shut them down, call them out, and do it at a personal level as well, in your friendships, in your families. Right? This isn't just a macro thing, it's a micro thing. Remember, toxic masculinity, the day-to-day manifestations of this. Grace Lee Boggs tells us, why is nonviolence such an important philosophy? Because it respects the capacity of human beings to grow. It gives them the opportunity to grow their souls. We owe that to each other. You know why? Because we are not things. You are not a thing. You are a soul. You have the right to grow your soul. And we've been conditioned into this system, right? We've been conditioned. That's why those of us who've broken free from the matrix have compassion. And we want to have compassion for those who are still in the system and who are still hopelessly enmeshed in that, right? That's why this is such an important philosophy. And because it ensures that as many people as possible can take part, right? Because it ensures that women can be in leadership. It ensures that people with disabilities can be in leadership, right? It's very important. Protest police brutality and racial profiling. Dismantle the police. It's not enough just to be like, oh, you know, we just need them to be retrained. No, fire all of them. How could you retrain people who actively go out and commit crimes and call it their job? You can't do that. You have to fire the lot of them and actually create community service to protect our people. So we need to build a new system. That's what that means. We need to build a new system. You're not going to win by propping up the old system, right? You also need to rethink masculinity, okay? I mean, this is something that we've been talking about this whole time. I hope you picked up on it. Learn from indigenous and ancient POC cultures about divine masculinity and divine femininity, and they exist in us no matter what gender we are. No matter what gender we are, okay? I'm no less a man because I fear. I'm no less a man because I'm mentally ill. I'm no less a man because I get to decide what it means for me to be a man. Create quality education, not incarceration, right? Not incarceration. Move away from fossil fuels, just transition. Move towards that. Learn about what it means. Be part of it. Implement and understand ecofeminism under the guidance of women of color and femme people, right? Create local Skillshare collectives to serve the local community. Let's move away from these corporations. Let's move away from all of these companies that make us pay them to do certain things. We know, because we work for those companies. We know how to do this shit. Why aren't we doing it for each other? Right? Let's do that. Let's move away from money and let's move towards service. Open the borders, fuck's sake. Be in solidarity with queer and trans people, of course, particularly queer and trans POC. Understand that your liberation is connected to everyone else's intersectional justice. I'm convinced that if we are to get on the right side of the world revolution, we as a nation must undergo a radical revolution of values. We must rapidly shift from a thing-oriented society to a person-oriented society that's MLK. And I'm going to go through this really, really quick because we need to wrap up. Build community by doing loving things together, okay? It shouldn't just all be like angry, angry, go, go, go. Nurture, nourish, love, okay? You're not going to do this unless you like each other. You're not going to care about someone else's liberation if you don't like them, if you don't spend time with them, if you don't care about them, okay? Build community by using transformative justice practices such as peacemaking circles. Okay, build community by creating off-the-grid, radically sustainable housing. Stop paying bills to the white man's system. What are we doing? We're helping them. That's not okay. We need to stop helping them. Okay? Build community, health, and sustainability by growing food and eating together. Dismantle industrial agriculture and worker exploitation. Dismantle toxic masculinity in your food. Eat a plant-based diet. Okay? Also remembering not to be a toxic white vegan. Okay? Don't talk to indigenous people about veganism. Shut your mouth, you're on their land. Okay? Holistic healthcare to smash the patriarchy under the guidance of legitimate, decolonized teachers of holistic healthcare practices. That's very important. Don't go to your local yoga studio down the street bastardizing my culture. Don't do that. Don't give them money. They're thieves. Dismantle capitalism by building radically local holistic economies. Uplift the voices of children and youth, such as the Earth Guardians, Mom of the Planet, Our Children's Trust, and many, many, many more. Okay? Keep doing it. Why are we doing this if not for them? Right? And don't wait until you have a daughter to do it. Commit to lifelong anti-racism and anti-patriarchy training. You're not going to be fixed in a weekend or in a day's training, okay? It's not how this works. If you're going to mess up, it's okay to mess up. It's okay to mess up. It's not okay to not take responsibility when you've messed up. So be accountable, particularly to women and femme of color. Listen when they tell you how you hurt them. Follow their instructions on how to be better males. Don't expect forgiveness. Don't expect forgiveness because you're not entitled to any. You are entitled to improve your allyship. You are not entitled to harass women of color by demanding that they forgive you. You're not entitled to do that. Be humble. The same way a white person will always be a racist, you will always be a patriarch. Listen and follow the guidance of women and femme people to stay on guard against your ego. Don't be a male savior or a fake male feminist. Oh, sorry. The true root of the problem. So the truth is that all of the systems of oppression come from patriarchy. Because patriarchy is about control. It's the idea that you have a male body, therefore you're entitled to control and dominate others so that you get what you want for your male body. Right? And where does that come from? It comes from the ego. Because the ego convinces you that you are your body. The ego convinces you that you are your body, and that makes you a thing. That makes you an object. So in order to actually get to the root of the problem, we have to understand this is a spiritual problem. And a spiritual problem can only have a spiritual solution. That means we have to understand, we have to have spiritual practices, we have to decolonize our minds so that we understand we are not a body, we are a heart, a mind, a soul. And that your liberation is everyone else's liberation. Why do we close our eyes when we pray, cry, kiss, dream? Because the most beautiful things in life are not seen, but felt only by heart. They're not seen. They're not seen, they're felt only by heart. And that's it. Decolonize your mind, heal, walk the path of love. If you do so, you will never be too tired to smash the patriarchy. And that's our information.
With men is grateful that you were able to do such a thorough job. So thank you for your activism, for being so giving and sharing these resources with us. So folks, we're a little behind